All right. All right. So we're here for ESTA Live one more week again. And we have an exciting guest to share with you today. But before we get started, if you are just popping in, we'd love for you to put your state or country that you're watching from. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about pitches and business evaluations and all things esports. So, we're going to give a minute or so. So, if you are popping on, please just place your city and state in the comments section on this feed. And say hello to Facebook, hello LinkedIn, and hello Twitch. All right, Rohan, are you feeling good today?
Yeah, feeling good. It's been a nice, productive morning so far. Just looking forward to doing this and chatting with you.
All right. Well, have I'm an exercise person, so I've already gotten up and walked today. So I am also ready and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
So we'll wait for another minute or so,
Okay,
and then we will introduce ourselves because there's going to always be team replay.
okay,
And I have them use a hashtag team replay when they're watching this on the replay.
okay.
So we'll give another couple seconds while Lindsay put in um, some notices for us, reminding folks to tune in and then say where they're tuning in from. So, all right, so it's now 1:02, and I think it's fair to say we'll get started, Rohan, because we're on time, right?
Sure.
And we'll have everyone else catch up.
Okay.
All right, so hey, Christopher Matthews. Hey, Rohan, do you know that name, Christopher Matthews?
I
You
believe.
should. He was in a pitch competition.
Yeah.
Christopher is not going to be happy that he didn't remember his name. So, all right. So, hi, my name is Sharon Gale, and I serve as the Chief Strategy Officer for the Esports Trade Association. Proudly serve as that. I'm also a co principal of Sharon Gale International. We are an international consulting firm. And today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Rohan Bose, who's an associate in the valuation advisory services practices at Technos. He has several years of experience in valuation and litigation support services. Prior to joining Technos, Rohan worked at Mercer Capital as a senior financial analyst, where he completed valuations of public and private companies. His experience also includes estate and gift tax planning and forensic and litigation services. Rowan has expertise in the professional sports, NFL, MLB, and NBA, esports, and the tech industries. Now, I'm very excited about Rohan because Rohan and I served recently in the elevator pitch competition at the wonderful ESTA conference. And if you guys miss it, you missed something awesome. And so Rowan's going to talk to us a little bit about himself. We'll talk about the pitch competition and about business evaluations and startups. So Rohan, welcome and tell us a little bit more about yourself and about what you do.
Sure. So, as Sharon mentioned, I'm Rohan. I'm associate at Technos Associates. It's a business valuation and financial advisory firm. It's 100% remote. I'm based in Dallas, Texas. Been in Texas most of my life and really enjoyed growing up here and working here. My background is business valuation. I've been doing it, ever since I graduated from undergrad several years ago. And it's been a good experience so far. Definitely learning a lot and learning kind of how companies operate, what makes them tick, and been fortunate enough to work in a wide variety of industries as well, which has been helpful.
I'm intrigued about the business evaluation piece, and so we're going to go into that because how does one evaluate their business or evaluate their business? Put a value. I may think my company is worth $1 million. As a matter of
Sure.
fact, true story, Rohan. Wayne and I, you met Wayne, my partner. We had
Uh-huh.
a law practice, right? And
Okay.
at one point, we wanted to merge with another company, and we thought, man, this is worth millions. And when the company merged with us, it wasn't the same. So tell us your thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. So, obviously it varies kind of industry to industry, or, kind of what business line you're in. But I think a service business like that, it's hard to quantify, a specific value, because a lot of that is built on personal relationships, right? And so,
Hmm.
um, you know, yes, you have that client list, and you have, that kind of roster of people that you're working with, but that won't necessarily transfer to the company that's acquiring you, right? Once you're acquired, it's very possible, even likely, that those clients try and find someone else that they might have had a previous relationship with, or, kind of their number two option, and not necessarily go with you to that new firm. So I think it's a big
Ah.
challenge for service type businesses, and especially valuing, that type of, industry and service business.
So let me go over that, because I think that's where Win and I might have made a mistake, right?
Sure.
So even if you have a large client base, right, and we thought, hey, we have this client base, gee, we're going to be giving this new company all this client, all of this, right, all of these receivables,
Yeah.
but it may not necessarily transfer. So as we are evaluating our what we think our values, it may not necessarily translate on the other side.
Right, right. Yeah, obviously a lot of it depends on the contracts and kind of what those terms are, and, if they're tied to you individually, or if it's tied to the firm, and, you have a 3-year contract, then yeah, obviously, that new firm that's acquiring you can kind of count on that revenue. But then, there's still the risk of, after that contract expires, if they didn't like the new firm, they might go somewhere else, right? It's still, I think, very much based on, kind of the personal relationships, in this specific instance.
Okay, so and I hope, as people are watching and even watching the replay, this is very good to know, because, like I said, the entrepreneur, the founder, we have an inflated sense, right, as to what we think our business is worth. But people like yourself is crushing us and bringing us down to earth. So, how do you evaluate a business that is fair to me, the founder, right, and is fair to, I guess, whoever wants to buy me or merge with me or whatever the case may be? What are
Sure.
things
Yeah.
that you should look for?
Yeah. So I obviously, I think objectivity is kind of the most important part, right? You as an analyst, or a valuation service provider, can't really have a personal, or vested interest in whatever the outcome is. So kind of the impartiality and objectivity is important. And then knowledge of the business, right? Whatever industry it might be. So, for example, at Technos Associates, we're very much focused on kind of emerging technology, whether it be biotech, esports, crypto, etc. But very strong expertise in kind of the emerging tech, space, and so that's important as well. And then, I think it's just, uh, there's kind of three general approaches to value, right? Market approach, income approach, cost approach, and, using a combination of those three to evaluate and analyze, a business, and see how they're performing. I think market approach is probably the one people are most familiar with. It's just, how do you compare to your peers, in a similar industry, or maybe the exact same kind of business operations, from a financial standpoint, as well as kind of growth and operational standpoint.
So who are your typical clients? Because you say you're working in the esports industry.
Sure.
So the client would call you when.
Yeah. So typically we're doing valuations for, kind of equity compensation purposes. So as a startup company, if you're issuing, equity to your employees, it's a taxable event that the IRS is going to want to know how much are these shares worth, and so that's a big part of what we do is, how much is this company worth, and then kind of, because of that, how much are those individual shares worth, and how does that, translate across the cap table for each individual employee.
So, a startup, for example, that they're seeking an investor, right?
Sure.
And of course, investor wants the lowest price, and the startup obviously wants the highest price.
Sure.
So, do that startup then contact Technos, your company, and say,
Um,
is that would they
so
do that?
typically it would be after the investment, right? So you've already, here's what the value of series, let's call it Series A is,
Hmm.
right, per share. But typically, when you're issuing equity to employees, it's usually common stock. It's not the preferred shares. And so, how does that value of the Series A impact the common stock, right? And so there's some analyses that we do to kind of determine that value. And then, we do offer kind of financial consulting and business advisory services as well. And so, if you're a company that's seeking investment, it's definitely a service we offer to, just kind of analyze where you are, how have you been doing, and even potentially connect you with investors and things like that.
All right, so we're talking about business evaluation, a little bit of VC stuff with Rohan Bose today. And let me just say this for ESTA. If you want to be a part of our lives, this is a member only. So you have to be a member of ESTA, just like Rohan is. So we're going to put a link to make sure that you find out more about becoming a member. And if you also want to apply to be on the show, please contact our office. We're going to put a link in the comments for you to contact our office to apply to be on our ESTA Live. We're doing it once per month. Rohan, recently you were one of the judges at the Esports Trade Association's annual conference.
Hmm.
And so we chose a winner, and I felt like it was hard to choose, right? Because they were all good. How
Yes.
do you determine, and what are you looking for through your eyes as a business valuation guy? You're one of the judges. What were you looking for in particular so that we can prepare our people even better for the next, conference?
Sure. Yeah, for me, I think it was just kind of operational stability, right? What have you done so far, and how are you able to kind of sustain that performance and grow from where you are?
Mm.
What does your path to, let's say you have a target of 100 million in revenue 2 years from now, right? What does that path look like? What are you doing right now to get to set yourself up to be able to achieve that goal? And then, I think just do you already have kind of solid operations? Are you profitable or on the path to profitability, right? Most investors don't like losing money, and so if you're you got all this capital and you've kind of made these promises, how are those funds being allocated, how are they being used, how are you setting yourself up to become profitable if you aren't already?
So pitchers usually have maybe what 2 to 4 minutes max,
Right.
right,
Right.
to pitch, and you guys have to make a judgment call on that. So you mentioned operational stability.
Mhm.
Someone comes up and they say, "Hey, I'm seeking an investment for X amount of dollars because I am going to make $50 million in 2 years," right? So I know that you guys, the judges, you start to think about, okay, how is this going to happen?
Right.
So it's the burden of proof. Then this is my legal term here. The burden of proof now is on the pitcher
Uh-huh.
in that 4 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever window they get to convince you guys, the judges, that we are going to be stable. And you're looking for what have you done already? Are you on the path to profitability? And so those are the elements that they have to show to
Right.
convince you guys.
Right.
Okay, so if you guys are on this feed and have a question for Rohan, please post your question. Hey, Christopher, if you have a question for Rohan, post it in the feed. Wayne, whoever else is on here, please post your question in the feed, and we'll ask that question of Rohan. Rohan, what are some of the trends you're seeing right now? Because this industry is exploding. I'm on LinkedIn every day, and I'm seeing all these mergers and these funding, and seems like a lot of money is being thrown around. My question for you is this a new gold rush, or I mean, are investors really digging deep, into these companies that they are throwing money at? There's so many people in the industry who are not, they weren't running a company before, they
Mhm.
weren't leading anything before, they don't necessarily have business savvy. So how are you, what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm just seeing so much money being exchanged in this, in the
Yeah,
industry.
I think there's definitely more knowledge in the space now. I think it's not just blindly throwing cash at something and hoping it works. I think there's definitely some more kind of understanding and research and just kind of education going on in the industry. I think and because of that, I think is kind of the reason you're seeing this increased investment and
Yeah.
just kind of additional activity in the space.
Yeah, it's like the latest hot stuff. Megan's asking, what is a fair price for an evaluation? And I guess that would depend on 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 what do you call it, on the company, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on what you need and what you're looking for, right?
Yeah,
What's the purpose of the valuation? I had a former colleague that would say, you set the scope, I'll set the fee,
yeah,
or if I set the fee, then you can set the scope, right? So it's really a matter of um, what do you need done and honestly how quickly do you need it done, right?
mhm.
Because if there's a time crunch, obviously we need to be paid a little bit more because I'm going to be up late and might be losing some of my beauty sleep.
Yeah.
So
We can't have
yeah,
that.
exactly right. So I don't think that there's one kind of set price per se. It varies greatly depending on what you need done. So sorry I didn't directly answer that question,
Oh,
Megan,
that's
but
okay. That's okay. At least we get an idea. And I have a follow-up question to that. But there's a question from Wayne. What is the number one thing that potential clients get wrong all the time? What makes you shake your head? Like, geez.
yeah, I think just from a reporting side of things, right? We're analyzing your financial statements that you've provided to us, and so making sure they're accurate, right? If you have balance
Mm,
sheets, let's make sure they balance, right? If you have your income statements and some, you might have several versions of them. Let's make sure we have the most accurate version, right?
yeah.
So I think just the because the work we do it's really based on the quality of information and data that we get, and so if the quality of data isn't good, then it's really hard to turn out a quality work product. So I think just the information you're providing to us is useful and necessary. Let's just make sure it's accurate and high quality as well.
Well, let me do a follow-up to that because you're saying, because of, all right, so I do my books, right? And people do their books. So I'm going to give a financial statement, which we know if you're unscrupulous, you can fudge those numbers. So are you looking then for audited financials or
No, and
no?
so, well, so the majority of the clients we work with, right, it's startup companies, very early stage companies that don't have the budget for audited financials, and quite
Hmm.
frankly, don't have any need for audited financial statements yet. There's kind of a certain size threshold for audited financials, right? It's
Hmm.
once you've and it's really when the kind of big investors come, and that's when you need the audited financial statements. So I think it's more just obviously there can be unscrupulous people, but just making sure it's accurate information.
All right, let's take another. There are two more questions behind this one from the audience. is it only worth evaluating your company if you're thinking of selling it? That's from Nick Turner.
Sure. It's a good question. I don't necessarily think so. I think maybe sometimes you just want to get an idea of where you are. I kind of mentioned the kind of employee equity compensation earlier as well. And if you're trying to bring in new partners, kind of a new executive level type person, part of their compensation might be equity, right? And so, um, what does that look like, and what does that payment structure look like? And maybe you need to figure out, kind of what does that part of the compensation package translate to in terms of numerical value. And then, I think it's generally a good idea just to kind of have an idea of how your business is operating, right? Maybe there's some things you've been doing over the past few years that aren't necessarily the most efficient or most practical, and kind of try and get a third party's eyes on those. Sometimes as a founder, as a kind of executive, you get a little bit too tied down in the details, and don't have that kind of bird's eye view of things.
That was a good question, Nick, because I don't know if you missed the earlier part when I was giving Rohan the example that when I was trying to merge my husband and I run a law firm together for years, and when I was trying to merge my law firm with another law firm, I thought we were worth millions of dollars, and because we had a lot of good receivables, but as Rohan explained, the receivables are not a big factor in evaluating a company because it's not a guarantee that the clients will actually go with the merge or stay with the merge or stay with the collaborations or stay with whatever. So it's not a big factor. But I like what you said, Rohan, that it's sometimes good just to evaluate your company so you know where you're at and it and give you more of a reality check. So great
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Derek is asking, what are the KPIs that matter most in valuing an esports team?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think part of it is esports organizations vary so greatly in kind of how they're making money, right? Some
Hmm.
of them are more focused on the competitive side of things, and so it's about the prize pools and what titles are you competing in, how good is your roster, and kind of how sustainable is that to be at the top of kind of the competitive ladder. And then other organizations are a little bit more focused on kind of the content creation, brand awareness side of things. And so a lot of their revenue is coming from sponsorships and activations and things like that. And so really, I think it kind of depends on the individual organization. But what is your kind of path to profitability, right? How are you making money? How are
Hmm.
you keeping it? How are you spending that money? And how are you, hopefully retaining some of that money to invest back into the company.
It's true. You mentioned something again, and just being a business person myself, we talk about how you talk about making money, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's you're making money, but you're also spending money, and then there's this deficit, maybe income at the end.
Right,
So the end piece, right? Like expenses, and income, right? Take away the expense of the income, and we have this little piece, if we have any little piece left.
right.
Does that factor into your valuation that we're not having money to reinvest back in the business? Is that a factor in your valuation?
Absolutely, right. At the end of the day, I mean, the main goal of a company is to be profitable, right?
Hmm.
So you could be bringing in, hundreds of thousands, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you're spending lots of money to generate that revenue, and, your profitability isn't there, then it's just not a sustainable business. At some point, someone's gonna kind of cut the cord and say, look, like, I'm not making money from this. It's not sustainable. So really, I think it's very important to keep in mind that
Yeah.
yeah, the revenue is great, but profit and income is even better. So
I'm glad you address that because, as a business consultant, right? And I work with work in the esports industry, which is um, it's new. It's still a new industry, fairly new. And what
Right.
I am seeing is the
Hmm.
burn with the cash. So
Hmm.
I'm seeing startups, especially, wanting all this money in, but man, they're spending it as fast as they're getting it in, and their product is still not ready
Right.
uh, for the investor payoff. So that always intrigues me. Like, how is this working? They need so much money to get off the ground a little bit,
Hmm.
but the profit is really way down. How do you evaluate a company? I'm going to get to Christopher's question afterwards, but how do you guys evaluate that? When you're looking at these books and a quarter million came in, and it's going to get them to do a beta test,
Uh-huh.
and and then you need another quarter million. How do you guys square that away?
Yeah, so I think, and this kind of ties into Chris's question, I think, is, how are you using those funds, right? So if the investment is 250,000, how does that help me generate, 5 million of revenue, for example, right?
Yeah.
What am I using that money for? So, yeah, there's an idea, but no financial history. I would like to see what is your plan for this investment, right? I have, $250,000 cash. How is this capital being allocated? What am I doing? Am I, hiring engineers to kind of build out this product? If it's, some sort of physical device, or, software engineers, whatever it might be, how am I, trying to achieve my financial goals, right? Because one thing we do analyze heavily is kind of the forward-looking statements. What are kind of management's estimates 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Where do you plan to be or expect to be, and then how does that capital kind of help get you there?
So I know you've looked at Chris's question. He says, how do you present these sorts of things if you're seeking a pre-seed investment in a company that is more or less pre-revenue, which is kind of what we were kind of talking about. The
Uh-huh.
idea is there, the interest is there, but you're not going to get a lot of financial history.
Yeah.
That is a
So
tough piece, right? That is a
yeah,
tough piece.
it's
Yes.
really, so obviously you have to believe in your idea, right? And then convince others, this is my idea, this is why it will work. If you give me this money, here's how it'll be used to achieve this idea. So it's
Mhm.
really, having a good idea, being convicted about that idea, and just making sure that it's a realistic idea, and the funds you're seeking, you know will they actually help you achieve your goal, right? Because if you're asking for $100,000, um, and planning to generate, 250,000, $300,000 off of that 100,000, how do you realistically achieve that goal? And just making sure that it is an achievable goal, because the last thing you want to do is, ask for 100,000 and then need another 100,000 to hit 300,000, right? So
So in that scenario, you may as well ask for the quarter million up front than 100, which doesn't really get you much,
and
and then 100, then keep piecemealing it. You may as well just ask for it and have a proper plan to say here's how it's
exactly.
going to be used. Now I have
Yep.
a question, which I've
Sure.
seen in some of these. Like I said, I do work with some of these startups, and what I've seen, and I want you to address this because I am a little bit challenged by it, is let's say a startup is asking for 200,000, right? Or 250. And 200,000 of that is just for their salaries.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that would.
This
I
is
feel
what
like,
I
yeah, so
see
I feel like
this.
most of the founders I've met, aren't, they're doing this because they believe in their product or service, or whatever they're creating, and so the salary is kind of the last thing on their mind. It's more about, how do I get this thing off the ground and get it up and running, and if I haven't been paid in 5 6 months, so be it. But I believe in this product, and I'm using these funds to kind of get this off the ground. So I think it's more, you know, I'd have real hesitation if I'm paying your salary, right? Like at that point, I might as well just hire you to work for me, right? Like it's not it's not an investment, because if I'm just paying your salary, there's, as far as I can tell, no real return on that investment.
Startups, if you're watching, you're in pre-seed or down the line a little bit, and if you're watching whether now or on team replay, think about that, because as a consultant, I do see that where the ask is there, but on the books it's for the salary to keep you going so you don't have to do any other work. But as Rohan said, as an investor, as an evaluator, when they see stuff like that, they're thinking they may as well hire you because they're just pretty much maintaining you, and maybe the product is not being developed at the clip to what you're asking for. So just be mindful of that, because I do see that in some of these books that as I'm, reviewing. Derek said, great answer. Thank you. I don't know which one was a great answer, but thank you. Now that there's more visibility into the esports investment landscape, have you seen any material changes, increases or decreases in M&A activity? Do you know what M&A activity is?
Yes.
Is that mergers and acquisition?
Mergers and acquisition.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
M&A activity related to capital raises or acquisitions. It seemed like investors who didn't understand this vertical were blindly throwing funds. I agree with you about that, Derek, over the past 2 years, but have since become more prudent, likely after being burned a few times. And we all know, I don't know if Derek, you should know the story of that Justin Khan guy who we love from Twitch, but he did, Twitch, I'm sorry, but I'm streaming on you right now, but Justin did burn through $75 million because the strategy wasn't there. The strategy wasn't there. And this is what I'm seeing. A lot of people are asking for money and everyone wants to get in the game, but these entrepreneurs don't have the strategy to build an actual company. They don't have the leadership skills to get great teams. So what are you seeing in that vein? And Derek, by the way, Derek, I don't know if you're a member of ESTA, but I'm here to plug ESTA membership. So if you're not a member, we want you to become a member today so that you could be on our show, right? You could apply to be on our show. So if you're not a member, Derek, I want you to apply for membership with ESTA so that you could be at the next conference if you missed this last one. So to Derek's point, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's, there seems to be a kind of increase in information sources too. And, I've become, I guess, more invested in and involved in the industry. So personally, it does seem like there is an increase in kind of M&A activity, but I'm not sure if it's just because I'm paying more attention to it, there's increased kind of data sources, or just there is an overall trend of increased activity in the space. It's hard to kind of differentiate between the two for me.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the reason for that though, for the M&A? Is it because little guys have little ideas and big guys have big money, and so they're like, let's just acquire the little guys, and rather than give the little guys money who doesn't have the infrastructure, let's acquire the little guys and put them under our bigger umbrella? Would that be the reason?
I believe so. Yeah. So it's really, you kind of have some more established players in the space that have more capital, have more resources, have more reach. And then, so there's a smaller player that maybe has a great idea, but doesn't necessarily have the resources or bandwidth to kind of achieve, their kind of ultimate goal. And so, a bigger player sees that idea and says, that seems great. It seems like it would be beneficial for us as well. And so, let's go ahead and acquire this and pay you fairly for that idea.
Catherine's one of our attorneys and an amazing member of our education committee. So Catherine is actually in Hawaii. Thank you for tuning in, Catherine. Yeah. And yes, we got to plug EST. That's my baby. So yeah, EST has taught me everything I've ever known, will ever know about esports. Um, this has been a curious thing for me because everywhere I look now, and when you're looking for something, you see it. It's just all this VC activity and VCs clubs coming up everywhere. So I am wondering if, from your experience, are the returns there so far, or are they just saying we have this amount of money to play with, so we're going to play and see what happens? Because I don't know if there has been any big wins, because what I'm hearing is that teams are expensive to to run, right? Because of
Mhm.
all the salaries. So all this money coming in, is it just curiosity seeking? Is it trying to be early adopters? What is the gold rush all about? I just want to understand for my own education.
Sure. Just kind of with the note that Technos isn't in venture capital. We're not investing money, but from what I can see so far, it's still. I don't know if you can say there's been big wins, but it's also because most of those investments have been somewhat recent or relatively recent, and so there hasn't been kind of that horizon to see if that investment will play out. But I think there is a reason that there is increased activity in this space, and clearly venture capital is optimistic about the industry, and so I think from that standpoint, I don't know that firms would keep throwing money at an industry that they didn't think would be successful and kind of provide some good returns in the kind of nearer term future.
Okay. So as we're winding down here, and if you guys have questions for Rohan, Catherine, if you have a question for Rohan, post it. We'll put it on the screen for Rohan. If you have any questions, um, where do you see this all going, Rohan?
It's a really good question. I feel like there's so many kind of players and kind of organizations popping up. Honestly, I think we kind of see that M&A activity continue, right? You see some maybe consolidation. You see,
Wow.
the bigger players getting bigger because they're acquiring some of the smaller players, and kind of a bit of a just kind of contraction just from a size standpoint. But there's so many good ideas out there too, that I think the industry is going to keep moving forward and kind of um, continue to grow and develop.
So the M&As, wouldn't that be an advantageous to your kind of business model, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm thinking
yeah,
M&A. Okay, that's you. All
yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
M&A people
So
out there. Rohan is your guy. Take notes, right? M&As, right? That
yep,
you
yep,
want to be part of that move and that trend right now, and you are a person who want to be acquired. Um, you want to make sure that you're getting this impartial third party to evaluate your company. So when that big investor come, you're ready, and you're ready to be acquired fairly, right?
right.
And so that, to me, this whole M&A argument, it's almost like this is in my head right now, right? So if I'm a startup, I may have two goals now as a startup with this M&A trend.
Sure.
My goal may be, okay, I am going to start up to be acquired, so I'm
Yeah.
going to do my brilliant idea, my brilliant vision, and bring it up to this point, and hopefully sell it, sell the idea, get acquired. Or some more visionary types, they're like, okay, I want to be a startup to become the great next unicorn, the next CEO, the next whatever.
Hmm.
So I guess it's two different mindsets. So this is helpful to me as I coach, right? So
Sure.
when I'm coaching startups now, that's going to be my question. Are you doing an acquisition model later on, or are you trying to be the next, Twitch,
And
whatever?
yeah, I don't know that you necessarily have to choose, right? Because let's say you really believe in your idea, and so your goal is to become that next unicorn. But some other bigger firm or company with kind of a similar vision, kind of you catch their attention.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you necessarily have to choose. To me, it seems like you always kind of start out as the goal of being the unicorn, and then if some good offers come your way, then you obviously strongly consider them. I don't know that you necessarily want to start out with the goal of being acquired necessarily.
Yeah. I guess I make a point there. So Rohan, in our closing moments, because I don't see any more questions coming in,
Hmm.
speak to your ideal client right now. Why should someone contact you?
Uh-huh.
Um, when we get off this call.
Sure. Yeah. So any financial consulting, any valuation work you might need. We do a lot of kind of financial reporting work. Tax related reporting work. Or just want to get a better idea of kind of how your business is operating. Like I said, our focus is kind of emerging technology, which is a pretty broad umbrella, and I think most of the people in this room probably kind of fit under that umbrella. So happy to talk with whoever reaches out.
Lastly, I have a crypto fan on the call, right? I'm not gonna say who the crypto fan is, but they know who they are. And crypto is like this for me. Whoops, go over my head, right? Now NFTs even more over my head.
Sure, sure, sure.
I have a crypto fan on the phone and the NFTs.
Uh-huh.
What's that all about with esports? Can you give us a quick glimpse into what that's looking like?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and it even started a few years ago. But I think with crypto, just because it's a digital kind of currency and digital platform, and esports is kind of on that same kind of vein. It's easy. So, I think like in-game payments, for example, right, using cryptocurrency, it just makes it a lot quicker, easier, more secure. That's one kind of use case. And then, if you're talking about like NFTs, for example, right, the skins, avatars, etc., in various games, if you make those NFTs, right, it's a pretty kind of strong link right there as well.
Wow. And Catherine, you probably might have covered this before, but Catherine wanted to know what are your thoughts about the future of esports? Where are we going to be? Not, I'm not going to say 10 years. Where are we going to be next year? It's that fast.
It's a great question, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it is technology dependent, right? What does 5G, for example, look like a year from now, and how does that impact the esports world, right? I think at the ESTA conference we heard about how kind of mobile gaming is a significant aspect of esports, and I think 5G will only kind of help that grow, and so um, from a gaming standpoint, how does kind of improved and better technology help with the industry? And so I don't know that I necessarily answered the question, but I guess we'll be faster, quicker, better at a lot of things, but still a lot to figure out.
All right. Well, Rohan, it was a pleasure having you. I'm going to give my final push for ESTA. So, like I said, Rohan and I, we just served on the elevator pitch competition where Rohan was a judge, one of the judges, and we are looking forward to next August. And so, for our members, we have decided to have a super duper early bird rate, which is really an amazing price. And that rate is now in effect until January 31st, where we will change to an early bird rate until I believe March 31st. And then it will be regular rate for members. So Lindsay will put that link in the feed as to how to access that early bird rate, but you have to be a member. So for those of you who are watching, and you're not yet a member, you're missing out because Rohan serves on our membership committee, right, Rohan?
That's correct.
On our
Yep.
membership committee. So you get to pick his brains there too. He also comes to our regular coffee chats and our happy hour. So we have a lot going on at ESTA. And so we have a lot of value to add to the industry. And we have a lot of new announcements coming out that are cooking right now that we're going to be launching in January of 2022. And again, as for myself, I am a coach and consultant. I coach on strategies, business, and leadership. And I have fallen in love with the esports space because I see the need to get them ready to go talk to Rohan, okay? Before your business is worth zero, right? We're trying to get you to have your business actually be worth something. So, Rohan, thank you so much. And
Sure.
if you guys are watching this and it's after 1:45 p.m. Eastern, you are a team replay. So just do hashtag team replay, and we promise that we will answer your questions in the feed. Thank you so much. And again, thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.